needs to be aware that some clubs are going to find it very difficult to get back into the swing of things, and might consider some financial relief, not actually necessarily offering grants or so, but by maybe relieving some of the dues that there are. I mean, this is very much an English thing, maybe, but maybe other MBOs work differently. But I mean, what I've seen from England is that the English Bridge Union has been very keen, actually, not to or to pay as little as possible to its to the World Bridge Federation and the European Bridge Federation, but nevertheless has been equally as keen to ensure a stream of income from the clubs. I think it needs to be more even-handed now. Maybe controversial statement, but that's just the way I perceive it.
Yeah, there's things I can say and things I can't say. I can't speak on behalf of the EBU in a general sense. I work for the EBU, but I don't represent the EBU at that level. I think the lockdown has been very painful for the EBU. We made redundancies, we lost staff, we had staff on furlough. I think the question, should my concern has been getting clubs playing and keeping clubs together, and I honestly haven't given thought to the matter of membership dues. It's not been an issue for clubs that I've been involved in. Clubs, bridge being a relatively cheap occupation. I think some clubs have had a struggle, particularly where they've had to pay rent on premises that they're not able to use. And I would hope that we would facilitate, as the EBU, I would hope we'd facilitate assistance in those sorts of cases. But I can't really say whether the EBU should or should not have amended its fees for players. To me, it's not been that big an issue. Perhaps you differ. I don't know.
No, I was going to say it's more of a mindset, really, to me. Changing from mindset of and absolutely, I've heard, as have many people, the things that you've just said around, well, redundancies have to be made, etc., etc. But I mean, it's still very centered on that. It's like, what about us being the EBU in this instance, rather than outwardly looking at maybe changing some of the ways. There's also been a sort of feel of, well, when can we get back to normal within the EBU as well? I know there's been some adjustments made, and then the recognition of adjustments needing to be made, but it's just a matter of a change mindset, a little bit more risk taking, maybe, to sacrifice something now for a better results in the future.
Well, I think you're right, Peter. I think a lot of change needs to happen within the EBU and probably within other MBOs. And part of my role as membership development has been really to try and facilitate that to a degree. One of the huge issues, to my mind, is changing the focus of the MBO from a more competitive approach to one that supports bridge players of every standard and every level. Exactly. I don't think the pandemic has changed that. I think it's maybe underlined it. And that is a big focus of my own in membership development. And I think another focus is just a bridge is changing, the bridge world is changing, and learning how to work together with the whole bridge community to sustain and grow our game. I think we have a lot to learn on that. It's not an easy challenge, but it is a challenge. So do we need to change? I think absolutely we do. Nikki.
Hi. Yes, I'd like to support what both of you have said. I think you've said some important things. Clubs have felt, I network in a group of clubs who have felt that EBU hasn't helped them very much. They are typically larger clubs that have premises to pay for, and they don't. Sometimes, frankly, it doesn't just look as though you're not helping. Sometimes it looks as though you are deliberately competing with clubs now and taking players away from club sessions. I'm absolutely sure that you never made, or the EBU never made, a decision with that intent. I think it was an unintended consequence, but it's really seen as quite serious. And I argued for a while that a change of attitude towards something more positive and more inclusive would be really great. I also think that the EBU should undertake a review of how it charges members, because I do think if members of more competitive type go online to play online, they should be paying more of the burden of running those competitions and everything associated with them. And clubs that are really essentially social, like mine, you know, rather need to have their financial burdens reduced. And when a substantial chunk of your table money goes to the EBU, and it's, you know, it's 20-25% often, you've really got to argue what you got for it. And I think this is what's going to be tricky with training, because I think we as clubs, we need a big national awareness campaign. I don't think we mind who does it. The best organisation that could do it should do it. I think we need free training and information for directors. I think the big, you know, one of the really big constraints to coming back, I honestly think, is going to be the availability of directors and people who can run sessions. So, you know, I would strongly suggest that that's looked at in the future.
Yeah, it's possibly worth noting here, and I agree with everything you've said. Well, I can't comment, as I've said, on fee structures, but I agree with everything you've said about provision of TDs and so on is very, very important. It's probably worth noting that there are two organisations associated with the EBU. There's EBU and there's another one called EBED, which is English Bridge Development, which is a charity which is focused on growing the game and also does the training of TDs and so on. That is actually technically not part of the EBU; it's its own organisation, and is supported to a large extent by the EBU. So that's perhaps just worth noting. But I don't want this to be an EBU discussion entirely. What about other NBOs? Have you got similar issues, or what are the situation in other parts of the world in terms of how NBOs are coping with the changing world of bridge? Yeah, Peter. Can see your hand up, Peter. If you want to talk, go ahead. You're muted at the moment.
I think that's a legacy. That's a legacy hand, actually. So
okay, sorry.
Sorry,
yeah.
I'll get rid of that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, well, I find the point that you guys made about the membership dues pretty interesting, because what we have done in Singapore is we have not actually collected membership dues from our members for last year. So we go by financial year. I think we've not come to a decision as to what we are doing this year, seeing as a quarter has passed since April, the start of financial year, and we unfortunately have had a second kind of semi-lockdown, so we haven't really played any physical bridge outside of the trials, which were heavily controlled, socially distanced, and played on real bridge. So I would think that we probably would not take any membership fees this year, or if we do, it might be like half priced. The point about directors I thought was also really, really interesting, because that is the problem that I faced here in Singapore, that for anything that's run by NBO, it's usually just 3 of us who are the main directors running everything. Even for the clubs, the pool of regular directors running the weekly club games are the same few. And my fear, as I have personally experienced, is there will be some level of burnout after a while. And in fact, one of the directors did, in an email exchange with me, said that he is feeling that he has kind of maxed out during this whole pandemic period online, whereas he didn't used to have this problem directing face to face.
Yeah, some very good points. Thank you very much. I'd just like to add also on the subject of directors that I think the role of directors is changing somewhat. I think, I mean, one thing we've been learning, I think, in our own organisation is that whereas at one time the role of the director was very much about, you know, applying the rules, keeping the game running according to tournament standards and so on, now we're much more about making sure that a club is friendly, that novices are treated appropriately, that everyone feels the director is there to help them and not to punish them, all these things, which I suppose was always true, but it seems to have come much more to the fore now that we have perhaps an increasing social aspect to Bridge. It's always been social, but it is increasingly so. And directors are very, very important to the welcome that people feel when they play and how comfortable they feel, and therefore to the growth of the game. So just wanted to add that as well. Any other comments? And I don't know about IBOs collaborating with MBOs. That's above my pay grade, really. I have had very little contact with World Bridge Federation or any IBO, so it's a bit a very welcome contributions on that. If anyone has something to say on the subject.
Sure. I think maybe if I can just start the ball rolling, given that yeah. So we are under Zone 6, and okay, I mean, we also have kind of like a subgroup in Zone 6, which is the Southeast Asian Bridge Federation. Unfortunately, nothing has happened. So usually we have a Southeast Asia kind of bridge championships where there are 5 NBOs taking part every year. And last year, there were talks about moving it online, but it was just like 1 or 2 emails, and the whole thing never ever continued. Zone 6, we are trying to do our trials online before we were actually planning to do it in July, before the whole Bermuda Bowl was postponed. But again, it has not, other than actually being involved in helping to organize this, because Singapore is kind of like the host, if you could even have a host for, the meaning of a host obviously changes for an online event, but other than that, disappointingly, I would say we've not heard much directly from the zonal federation. I probably think it's going to be different for you guys under the Zone 2 in the EBL, but I don't know what the other zones are like.
I suppose one of the overriding questions here is that the whole world of bridge is being changed by the increasing importance of online. At a national level, we've discovered, and counties have discovered, that their events get much better attended where they're trying to appeal to a larger geographical area, and of course that's true at every level. So learning how to do this is something that we're all going to need guidance from, and that will affect the international game, as I would imagine, as well as the national and the local game. It's really at every level. So it's something we need to come to terms with. Yeah. Anybody else? Contributions? Someone who hasn't spoken yet. We haven't talked a lot about how we can facilitate clubs returning to face-to-face as an MBO. We're going to be running a session on different approaches to hybrid bridge. I mean, that's one thing we can do as an EBU. But what else? What should we be doing? What else can we do to assist clubs in their return to face-to-face? Patricia.
Well, one of the things that we are facing as a club as we go back to face bridge, which will hopefully be soon, is the fact that we've lost some of our club director expertise. Mm-hmm. There's a sort of small handful, 4 or 5 of us, who have learnt to direct on BBO, learnt to direct using Real Bridge, who've kept the club going during this time. Of that 4 or 5, 3 of us are county directors. But we have people who've been on the rotor as club directors for ages and ages who haven't directed a game for nearly 2 years. Mm. And they're going to have forgotten a lot of what they've learned. And even if they haven't, will have lost confidence. So one of the things I think that would be very, very helpful would be to have some refresher courses for club directors, and preferably inexpensive.